We are back on this Monday afternoon, and thanks for being with us. We are joined in studio by MTSU Athletic Director Chris Massaro. How are you?
I'm doing great, George.
How was the green room?
The green room was fantastic. I've been in a lot of green rooms in my life, but the shrimp cocktails and the food and the booze and stuff was some of the best I've ever been around.
That's beautiful. And of course, you know Watson.
I do. Hey, Watson.
As well.
How's it going, Coach?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
So the obvious place to start is this. Every piece of news that's out there is about what's going to be done for the Power Fives, those 50 some odd schools that all, seem to be holding the upper hand to everything. I never hear anybody bring up the MTSUs or the Memphises who are fighting for their place in this pie. How discouraging is this for you?
Oh, I think there's an inevitability about it. So I don't know if it's discouraging. I mean, in some ways, it's kind of fascinating just to watch. And I've told my colleagues in the Power Five leagues to be careful. Just because you're in a Power Five league doesn't make you a Power Five school. And I think some of them now are staring at that reality that, you know what, that this little empire that was built by other brands, we might be diminished. So I think there's a little bit of panic there. Whenever there's movement at the top, that it filters down to the group of five, and it impacted us quite a bit a year ago. And I would think the chances of that happening again in the next year are strong as well.
The first of a lot of dumb questions here. Do you see anybody that's in the Power Five that's worried about y'all?
Oh, no. One of my complaints or one of the degree of sadness that I have kind of towards the end of my career is that there's nobody that's a steward of the game. There's nobody looking out for the game itself. And I worry about that. And, when I hear, well, we just got to do what's best for the school, or we just got to do what's best for the conference. And there's not this collective good that we need to keep in mind. I worry a little bit if there's this great contraction of leagues, then maybe it'll be more regionalized. And if you lose the West Coast and you lose the East Coast, then college football is not going to be as popular nationally. I think one of the strengths of college football is that there's a game basically played on almost every street corner from Division III all the way up to Ohio State and some of the big boys. And what I worry about is if it gets too expensive to play college football, or football gets marginalized to where it's only played at a handful of schools in the next few decades, then the opportunities for football are going to be really diminished. And that would be sad. And I think in the long run, that'll cost people money too. Right now, the only thing that seems to be the driver is who's got the biggest television contract. And we need to have more values in our decision making. There's a lot more to higher ed than the TV contract.
Watson, butt in here, because obviously you've got a lot of opinions about where we're going. So feel free to chime in here.
Well, I'll hit on just what he just brought up, Chris. Till we get away from all decisions now are made off of the dollar, I don't know where we're going to go, because that wasn't the way it used to be. Honestly, the dollar's always mattered, but even 20 years ago, Chris, It wasn't this. And back when I was at UAB as an AD, as you are, the dollar mattered. There's no doubt. We had to figure out how to make budgets meet just like you still do today. But every decision wasn't made off of, can we make another million? Can we make another $500,000 by doing this and sacrifice everything? I mean, of course, football's the driving piece, Chris, but what about baseball? What about track? What about golf? I mean, and so, well, the heck with that. We don't care if they got to travel 8 million miles or whatever. We got to make the most money that we can make. And I don't see an end to this, Chris. If these TV packages keep going up and up and up, how do you turn it down? I mean, there's a buying point for everybody. And when it gets up there like it did for UCLA and Southern Cal, that's a lot more money than they were bringing in. So I can't blame them. But when's it going to stop?
Well, I don't think it will stop. I mean, that I keep waiting for these market corrections. And you mentioned UCLA, coach, and I just can't help but think of their softball program. I mean, that they are in Oklahoma City just about every year. They're a nationally prominent softball program and has built their program on playing the California schools. So all of a sudden in February and early March, the UCLA softball team's got to go play a 3-game series in East Lansing, Michigan. And that's just the weather elements and everything involved, or to go to State College, Pennsylvania, and all of those things, to take them out of their natural habitat and to put them where they are. It just doesn't make sense. And I don't see that. I know the money will help, but in the long run, I'm not sure if that really helps their program, and we don't look at the overall picture and all of the sports. And, we're always been a little bit hypocritical in college athletics, but, here we are going to celebrate Title IX 50 years, and everybody puts out on Twitter, oh, happy anniversary, Title IX, and all those kind of things. And we speak, every AD tweets it out. And then, we make these decisions that run contrary to women's athletics, and so I'm not real happy about the direction it's going. I worry about the NCAA basketball tournament when you have some commissioners talking about, well, maybe we don't need at-large bids or as many at-large bids. And to me, that's, I should say, automatic qualifiers, not at-large, the AQs. And if they start taking the AQs away, then I think the basketball tournament really loses its flavor, and so to me as a sports fan, that would be tragic, because to me, that's one of the top sporting events in the world. And I love the NCAA basketball tournament. And so we need to do everything we can to preserve the culture and the feel and the excitement of those first 48 hours of the basketball tournament are some of the best in sports. So that's what I worry about. I hope that in our chase and our zest, and I get some of it, some of them just, they have to do it to keep up with the Joneses. But I hope we don't really hurt ourselves in the long run by doing some of this stuff.
George, one quick thing with that, and I'll throw it back to you and let you have him another time. But I also worry, Chris, I was a football coach and an AD. I came up through football. When all this money is coming through football, I worry about these ADs being pushed by a lot of people to put way too much money in football and not pass this money these Power Fives are going to start making around to the other sports. And that could be a disaster too. Have you thought in that way, or am I off my rocker with that?
Well, I think it can happen. If I think the Big Ten and the SEC are probably okay, that there's enough TV money to spread around. In some ways, they have to be a little bit creative in spending it all. So I don't worry about those, but I worry about some of the more mid-range Power Fives that may have to cut sports. If you're a Kansas State, and how do you keep up with a Texas or somebody like that? Then maybe you cut back on your sport offerings, or you don't put as much money into those sport offerings. So that's a way that you can catch up to the football piece of it. So I think in the long run, that's going to really hurt. I think that the NCAA kind of sees that, and they've tried to work with the Olympic governing bodies on some of the sports, and maybe there's some funding there and those kind of things, because as those sports get cut, it is going to hurt the Olympics. And so there's always a trickle down effect.
Is there a morale issue that this creates, where you have a coach walk in one day and say, what's the point? We have no chance.
No, I don't think so, George. I think that, maybe Watson would be better qualified to answer that question. The coaches I've been around they want to win the next Saturday, and they want to win the conference and those kind of things, and then take it from there and play on that national stage. I think that what you see is a little bit of, I think the morale on coaches is quite honestly the work that's involved now. You mentioned the NIL, and they're having to recruit every day now. And we've had campus visitors all summer long. There's been no downtime for our coaching staff. And so that'll add up. I worry about that. I worry about the coaches' mental well-beings, because with the transfer portal and everything going on in the NIL, and coaches trying to raise the money for their collectives and all those kind of things is associated with the NIL, that there's no downtime. I mean, and so their very busy schedule just got dumped on even more so. And I think we're going to lose some coaches to that. We've seen it with Bronco Mendenhall and, at Virginia. And I think you'll see more taking the escape hatch, maybe to the NFL and other places where it might be a little forgiving, this work-life balance.
Let's go this scenario, because I know it's going on. There's a kid in your basketball program. I'm not naming any names, but this kid has sort of a breakout sophomore year. And this kid, it's obvious, can play at a higher level, but Middle was the one who took the shot at him.
Right.
More power to Middle. Well, now all of a sudden, the way the thing's set up, this kid's got 15 schools in his ear in his dorm room saying, you don't need to play at that level. You can come play at our level, be on TV more. How in the world do you compete with that?
Yeah, and I don't know if you can. I mean, what we try to do and we emphasize to our coaches is just, the culture. And our coaches, George, I mean, that we hire people that are interested in the total student body, this total student athlete, and worry about their grades, want to make sure they graduate and all those kind of things. And as these relationships get more transactional, I think eventually that'll get more important, and so I think we're positioned pretty well for it. We're going to lose people like that, as you described, but we've got a chance to gain some too. Being in the middle of the food chain and the NIL, I think we're okay. I try to tell our coaches, like, we can't just gnash our teeth over the ones that we might lose, but let's come out each year and out of the portal and be a net positive. And that's got to be our goal. So if we lose that star, well, maybe we can get two guys that can fill that out of the portal or whatever. So that's going to happen. We just need to prepare ourselves for it.
After the break, we'll talk with MTSU Athletic Director Chris Massaro about football and about scheduling, because in his area of the world, he has been one of the best schedulers you can find anywhere. We'll explain that when we come back. This is Main Street Media Television. We are back as we welcome all of you in. Chris Massaro is MTSU's athletic director, and he is with us in studio. Over the years in football, you have gotten, and I tried to think through all these, BYU, Mississippi State, Maryland, Minnesota, Virginia. You have gotten some big boys to come play you more than any school in the country on your level. How have you pulled that off?
Well, we've been very fortunate, George. I mean, that we all know, because we're all local here, but being in the area that we're in, people want to come. We're not at the end of the road and those kind of things. So that was, so selling Nashville, selling the area, it's a good trip for your fans, those kind of things. And then being real strategic about it, like, who may not want to pay the big guarantees and be more willing to do a home and home kind of event. And so that's what we did. And we had a lot of success on it. Just this year, we were supposed to open with Missouri, and we'd done a home and home with them. And they informed us in about October or November that they did not want to come to Murfreesboro, and we're not coming to Murfreesboro. So we scrambled around and tried to talk them into it, and they wanted to buy the game and have it go to Missouri. And I'm like, just the principle of it, I really didn't want to do that. And so we just agreed not to play this year. They paid the separation agreement. And so we scheduled at James Madison. So they were kind of the other SEC school I was going to be really excited about to be able to come on your show and say, man, we got Missouri. And to be fair, it's harder and harder to get these schools. So what we talked about in the first segment is the bigger their TV contracts get, the less willing that they are going to be to go away from home, that they just want to sit there and buy their opponents. And some of the networks are going to expand from eight conference games to nine conference games, so they can get more on the Big Ten network or the Pac-12 network, whatever it might be. So we'll deal with that as well. So they're harder to get now than they were 10 years ago, but we still want to try fishing a little bit.
Okay, let's bring Watson back in here, because Watson, you've played the athletic director role as well. Did you have much success in that area of getting the big guy to come play you?
To be honest, not as much as Chris has. In my early years there at UAB, we were really just starting, and we had to go 2-for-1s. And Chris knows that's a killer. I think we did that with Kansas. We did that with Virginia Tech. My latter years, we did get Baylor and Mississippi State to come in home and home. But it's hard, and Chris has nailed it. Chris, my question to you is, when I was at UAB and we had that deal put on us that we had to knock the budget down $1 million a year to save football, and that was the budget down, not football budget, but the athletic department budget down $1 million a year. The two ways I could do it: go raise money, and you know as well as I do, raising money for a budget is the hardest thing in the world to do. They don't even want to listen to you with that one. And the second thing was go play people on the road for the Bucks. Is that still a part of scheduling? Do you have to make sure you bring in so much money through the schedule, Chris? Is it as much as it used to be? I see you're traveling to Miami is the only one that I saw that might bring you some pretty good bucks. Where is that in today's world and in your schedule? And the second piece of that real quick, are you going to have to go more now toward the group of fives for home and homes? Because you nailed it. The power fives are not going to come near as much as when they start getting these kind of bucks.
It's still, yeah, that still exists, Watson, that you need that payday, and those kind of things. And, to go play Miami for whatever, $1.5 million, I mean, that's a lot easier than, as you said, trying to raise it $1,000 at a time or $5,000 at a time. So that still exists. Most of us play one of those games. What I'm trying to get our schedule to be now is one game where we get bought, and then use that money to buy a FCS game, and then play 2 home and homes. And I'd like some of those home and homes to be stretch home and homes. They might be group of 5, but well-known group of 5s. We'd love to start playing Memphis again. We'd love to play, the military schools and some of those that have really great brand recognition. So that those are good areas. And then the one thing that this conference realignment's done is you've got a lot of former partners out there that you know pretty well, and they know your stadium and those kind of things. So ex-conference mates make good out of conference. We just signed and announced a couple months ago a couple game series with Marshall, which in CUSA, that was always one of our best games and draws well, and it's local. You can bus to it and those kind of things. So those are the kind of games that I like. I mean, and I think we're going to really try to play more of those kind of games.
That would make sense, George. One last thing, I'll give it back to you again. The other thing, Chris, that is hard is getting those home games. And I saw I guess you've got 5 this year. Are you trying to stay on a 5-7, 6-6 when you do that one bye, one and then home and home? Is that what that would turn out, or is it going to end up being 6-6 every year?
I would love to get to 6-6 every year. Where you have that split. We had it this year till Missouri backed out on us.
Yeah.
And that hurts you. I think next year we might have 6. We still have to return our game to Missouri. So our first 2 games next year, which is the last time in our future schedules where we play 2 Power 5 teams, is we've got Missouri and Alabama. So Coach Stock might want to get suspended for the first 2 games or something, so he doesn't have to maybe go to those places. So
been there, done that.
we do have those too, and that's where you get caught a little bit when you're trying to schedule the home and homes.
Yeah.
Where if you play 1 Power 5 at home, in 1 year, that means you got to go to that place the next year. And if you still need a bye game, that means you're going to have 2 Power 5s on the road, and that can really hurt your football program. So that's the last year we're going to do that. I think we're going to try to keep a lot of it with, like I said, with Group of 5s and ex-conference mates. I mean, seeing you on the screen, I mean, that UAB is a great game. We've had conversations with them. I mean, they're 3 hours down the road, and now that we're in different conferences, we had some great games. And so let's keep playing. So those are good. That's one of the offshoots of conference realignment, is it's kind of helped some of the non-conference scheduling with some of that, and also in basketball as well.
Okay, Honk, if you've heard these questions before, because you have. Number 1, is Memphis willing to play you?
Yes. Yeah.
Really?
We're in talks. Yeah, we're in
Okay.
talks. So I think that we'll get something done. But yeah, that they've been willing to do a home and home.
So what's question number 2?
My guess would be Vanderbilt.
Johnny, what does he win?
I haven't had a ton of talks with Vanderbilt. We had some, and Candace is great, and she's a good friend of mine. Their AD. This is our 50th anniversary of the Murphy Center, and we opened it on December 11th, 1972, against the Commodores. And so a year ago, it was like, hey, this is a great idea. Let's bring back Vandy for a basketball game, and sell the history piece. We'll play 2 at their place and 1 at ours, kind of that 2-for-1 that Watson was talking about. And they seemed interested. They really did. And we had some good conversations. And then I think we messed up a little bit because Nick won 26 games and they weren't quite as interested, and so I'm just not sure where all that falls. I would love to play Vanderbilt. I think local games are really important.
Oh, I think it's good for the community.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to say sitting in this chair, because I'm not the one, if the Vandy group loses and all of a sudden
Right.
everybody's all over their coaches. But still, when you see the excitement, the night Jay Cutler drove them down the length of the field, and you block the field goal attempt at the buzzer and win.
Jeremiah Weaver.
I mean, that place, that was as loud as I had heard that stadium in a long time.
Those are great memories. And, they came down to our place and won a fourth quarter type game about 4 or 5 years ago. And so we did, we played a 5-game series with them.
Yep.
So they've been good. They've been good partners to us. And so we would like that to continue. That if you notice, we play our first home game this year is against Tennessee State. And I love that game. And we're talking to them about more. I'd be willing to play at Nissan Stadium and play, be the visiting team there as well. I think it's important, and if I want to play local, then I have to walk the walk, and the Tennessee State game's great for us. It's great for them. And I'm so excited for September 17th. And I hope everybody's comes out for that. It'll be a great game.
For being our guest today, you get your helmet back. Hold on to that.
I want to see.
That
I
looks
want to.
good. That
Yeah,
looks really good.
we got a blue one with the blue face mask and stuff. I
It's a
kind of
good
thought,
looking helmet.
since if things get rough, I thought maybe you could put it on.
Things do get rough. Thanks. Do you want to stick around and participate in Stat of the Day?
Sure.
Because
sure.
it's been embarrassing for us.
Oh.
I'll explain more when we come back. You're watching Main Street Media Television.